Kia ora and welcome to the Niggly Nishcast. I am the Niggly Doodah Doc, aka Mr. Slipper, and I am here by myself to spit some rugby league insights for round 13 in the NRL. We're going to start with our usual Aotearoa New Zealand Warriors focus, and then we'll look at the broader NRL from our Kiwi NRL perspective. We did have State of Origin last night that Queensland won, which is cool, but who cares? You know the deal by now. If you're listening to this, support the Niche Cage on Patreon or any other way that you see fit. Like, subscribe, comment it up for the boys, rate, review, do all that good stuff to support the Niche Cage. And hey, if you want to sponsor the podcast as well, we're all ears to that. Rightio, we have the Warriors taking on Melbourne Storm in Auckland this week, 5 p.m. Saturday, and I'll run through the team for the Warriors because that's the most interesting thing for me at this stage. And the backline is as per normal: Toiva Sashek, Fusatua, Peter Hiku, Patrick Herbert, Kim Mamalo, Cody Nikarima, Blake Green. Forward pack, we have Ignatius Parsi returning to the middle of the field. Isaac Luke is also starting at prop. And then you've got Adam Blair starting in the middle in the number 13 jersey, which means Lachlan Burr moves to the bench. Bunty Afoa, Chris Sate has been promoted. So I've talked a lot about Lingy Sal recently on the Niche Cast, and I didn't actually know until this team was named that Lingy Sal picked up a suspension, which from that Canterbury Cup game on the weekend where Lingy Sal's stats were pretty impressive, but he appears to have picked up a suspension and is unavailable this week, which is a pretty silly move on Lingy Sal's behalf, considering he's lost his spot in the 17 now for the foreseeable future, and he's given a sucker an even break in opening the door for Chris Sate to get in. So guts bolt for Lingy Sal. Carl Lawton rounds out the bench. What I am most interested here is the use of Lachlan Burr and Adam Blair. So if we think back to the Brisbane Broncos game, my major takeaway from that was how good the Warriors were defensively without the footy. And a lot of that had to do with Lachlan Burr playing alongside Adam Blair in the middle of the park together. Adam Blair started that game at prop. Lachlan Burr started that game at lock. Having both of them led to a lot of control of the ruck area, and it was a pretty gritty Warriors performance, but it didn't lead to too much creativity or funk or points and or winning a game, which you need to do. So it was like a catch-22. Do you want to tighten everything up in the middle of the field, or do you want to win quick, play the balls, footwork at the line, powerful runs and all that good stuff that does lead to points? So now we have Lachlan Burr coming off the bench, and I went into Lachlan Burr's NRL stats just to see where he has played the bulk of the season, and he has started every game for the Warriors at lock except for round 3, which was the loss to Manly Seagulls in Christchurch. It was a terrible Warriors performance, but funnily enough, this was one of Lachlan Burr's best games. So let me just work through these Lachlan Burr stats, because Lachlan Burr only played 37 minutes coming off the bench against the Seagulls, and the week before he only played 32 minutes starting. But those two games, round 2 against the Tigers, round 3 against the Seagulls, those two games are the only games this season in which Lachlan Burr has played less than 44 minutes. So I say that to paint the picture of Lachlan Burr playing the second least minutes of a game in this season, which is quite extraordinary when you consider that game against the Seagulls, Lachlan Burr coming off the bench to only play 37 minutes, was one of 2 games this season in which Lachlan Burr has registered a line break. It was also one of 2 games in which Lachlan Burr has registered the most tackle busts per game. So he had 3 tackle busts, and then a couple of weeks later he had another round of 3, but in the last 5 rounds of footy, Lachlan Burr has only had 1 tackle bust. So automatically, in the game in which Lachlan Burr played the second fewest minutes this season, he's had tied for the most line breaks and tied for the most tackle busts onwards. That game against the Seagulls, Lachlan Burr coming off the bench, he had the second most post-contact meters of a game that he's had all season. So he had 41 post-contact meters, and then against the Cowboys a few weeks later he had 48. They are the only 2 games this season in which Lachlan Burr has had more than 40 post-contact meters. Then we go to offloads. He had 2 offloads in that game against the Seagulls. In only 1 other game has Lachlan Burr had more than 1 offload. Then we go to, what are we going to? Total run meters, 118 running meters. That is the second most running meters per game that Lachlan Burr has had this season, coming off the bench. So let me just roll through that again in hopefully a more simpler language. So playing the second fewest minutes, Lachlan Burr had either the most, tied for the first or second most line breaks, tackle breaks, offloads, post-contact meters, and running meters, which is a pretty telling statistic or group of statistics or insight, because to me that tells me that Lachlan Burr, when he's coming off the bench, he has a bit more impact, he has a bit more punch to his work. And this is coming after Lachlan Burr has had a bit of a plateau. So I mentioned his tackle breaks. His last 5 games, he's only had 1 tackle break. In those last 5 games, Lachlan Burr has not had over 23 post-contact meters, which is pretty extraordinary. His last 2 games, Lachlan Burr has had less than 20 post-contact meters in each game. He's had 1 offload in his last 3 games. He has not run over 100 meters in his last 4 games. So all of that paints a picture of Lachlan Burr hitting a wall in terms of his efficiency, his output, his production, his influence on the Warriors in the middle of the park. And that is why I believe it's a good move to take Lachlan Burr back to the bench. If Lachlan Burr is running for 50 meters, so 2 weeks ago against the Panthers, he had 57 meters. Last week against the Broncos, he had 54 meters. Those numbers aren't better than Adam Blair's. Everyone loves to talk about Adam Blair's statistics. Lachlan Burr's statistics recently, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, have not been any better than Adam Blair's, which I believe has led to Lachlan Burr coming off the bench. And it's a good move, because if you bring Lachlan Burr off that bench, I reckon you're going to get a lot more impact. You're going to get a lot more efficiency. You're going to get hard running, angle running, offloads, powerful runs, especially in conjunction with Bunty Afoa, who is very direct. He's a north-south runner. He runs it straight. Lachlan Burr is going to run more angles. And then you've got Sate as well. Let me just roll into Tavita Chris Sate, who has been pretty damn good in reserve grade. He's played over 50 minutes in all but one of his 11 games, I think it is. 10 games. So all but 10 games he's played over 50 minutes. He is on a... He's had a tackle bust in each of his last 3 games, and then in his last 5 games, he's had 8 tackle busts, 3 tackle busts, 4 tackle busts, 4 tackle busts, and 5 tackle busts, which is pretty damn good effort. He has run for over 40 post-contact meters in every single game he's played. He's had at least 1 offload in each of his last 3 games. He has run for over 100 meters in all but 1 game this season. And he's doing a fairly good job in reserve grade. and he's just got that bigger body, which I think is going to complement the likes of Bunty Afoa and Lachlan Burr nicely. So that is why Chris Sate has been selected to jump into the NRL. And also, like, it's hard to draw on one game for Lachlan Burr coming off the bench, but the fact that he did hit that plateau recently, and maybe he's got a bit tired. Like, he's played a lot of NRL footy this season for someone who traditionally in his career hasn't played a lot of NRL footy. It's kind of crazy. Lachlan Burr came to the Warriors and he's just been in the team most weeks, whereas before that he was struggling for NRL game time. So it's understandable that after 7 rounds of footy, Lachlan Burr's production pretty much just fell off a cliff. And combine that with his best performance this season coming with Lachlan Burr starting on the bench, and somehow you've got to fit in Adam Blair and Ignatius Parsi as well, because remember, Blair started at prop last week with no Ignatius Parsi. Ignatius Parsi returns, Adam Blair stays in the middle, moves to lock, and Lachlan Burr comes off the bench. I reckon it's a very good move. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Lachlan Burr have a lot more impact and influence on this game coming off the bench. In terms of the general vibe for this game, I think it will be pretty mediocre conditions. There's been a lot of rain around Auckland recently, and it's going to be a gritty affair. You're going to have a damp Mount Smart, and it's about the Warriors just doing anything to get the 2 points. I like to talk about how the Warriors are going to play and how their strengths and weaknesses align with their opposition. This week against the Melbourne Storm at Mount Smart Stadium, the start of this Origin period, I don't really care how the win comes about. The Warriors just need to find a way to win a game at home against a good opposition who are going to put up a fairly stiff challenge. Like, this Melbourne Storm team is still very strong. They've named their Origin players, but even if Cameron Munster, Ado Carr don't play, or even Felice Kafusi, even if those dudes don't play, Melbourne Storm are still going to have a very good team. You still got Cameron Smith, you still got Jerome Hughes, Jesse Bromwich, Nelson Sofa-Solomona, Kenny Bromwich, Brandon Smith, their Kiwi NRL whānau. You still got a very good Melbourne Storm team, and they're going to bring it, as they always do, even at Mount Smart Stadium. And I just want to see how the Warriors go about their business and just trying to get 2 points. They just need the 2 points. And while it's going to be, like, I can envision a tough game by the Warriors. They play pretty well, but they lose. Up to this point, I'd view that as an admirable performance. Like, even against the Brisbane Broncos last time, that was an admirable performance from the Warriors. But now, during this Origin period, it's about getting 2 points. Just do whatever it takes. I don't care how they play. Just get the 2 points against a good team, and then come back next week and do it all again. And for me, that means a lot of the responsibility falls upon the spine, Tuivasa Sheck, Cody Nikorima, Blake Green, and Isaac Luke, because they will need to control the game. They will need to keep Melbourne Storm coming off their try line. They will need to force repeat sets to break down the Storm's defense. The Warriors, it's a very simple style of footy that we have seen in patches this season from the Warriors, and I think the best way for the Warriors to get those 2 points is just about playing classy football. And they've got the players to do it. Like, this is one of the few times where we've had a full strength spine, especially injecting Cody Nikorima into the team as well. So you got the players to do it. You just need to come out and just do whatever it takes to get the win and control the game to the best of their abilities at home. As for the Canterbury Cup and Jersey Flegg teams, the reserve graders are facing the St George Illawarra Dragons at Mount Smart Stadium on Saturday. That team has Adam Pompey at fullback, Gerard Beale and Edward Kosi are your wingers, Hayes Perham, Solomon Akata at centre, Adam Kieran, Chanel Harris-Tavita are your halves, Jackson Frey starting at prop, Sean Mullaney is at hooker, Sam Lasoni is at prop, Blake Ashford, Tane Milne are your edge forwards, Levaha Pulu is at lock, and then you got Tyler Slade, Preston Ricky, Adam Tuamavave Gerard, and Philip Makatoa on the bench, and then a couple of dudes making up the squad. Of course, as we know, reserve grade, there's always last minute changes, so keep that in mind. A couple of notes here is that we still have Hayes Perham playing centre for the reserve grade Warriors, so you've still got Adam Pompey at fullback and Hayes Perham at centre, which basically means that the Hayes Perham experiment of him playing centre continues. And that's an important note, because that's perhaps where they see Hayes Perham cracking into NRL footy. The other important note here is Jackson Frey starting at prop. He is a very tall, big body for the Warriors and has been doing a fairly good job with the reserve grade team. And now he's getting an opportunity to start with Lingy Sao and Sate out of the team this week. So keep an eye on Jackson Frey if you do happen to watch this game. And I'll keep an eye on Jackson Frey's statistics from this game just to report back to you early next week about how Jackson Frey's performing, because but I'm looking at this Warriors forward depth. I think Jackson Frey offers something unique. He's a lot taller than our forwards that we have otherwise, and he's someone who I think can offer the Warriors a bit of a point of difference in their forward pack if he does get an opportunity moving forward. The Junior Warriors, they are facing the Victoria Thunderbolts, which is pretty much essentially associated with the Melbourne Storm. But not really, because Melbourne Storm, as we know, tend to recruit out of Queensland, New South Wales and Aotearoa. The Junior Warriors, under 20s, Jersey Flegg. We've got William Fakatomafi at fullback. Celestino Ravatamata is on the wing. Then you got Ray Tuaimalo Vanga. He is at centre along with Kale Iro. Harley Maynard on the wing. Paul Turner and Sione Mawala are your halves. Junior Pua and Michael Lemafa are your starting props, with Richard Toai at hooker. Eliasa Katoa starts on an edge with Tom Ale on an edge. Brady Tamarua is at lock. Casey Smith, Faio Tongia, Isaiah Vangana and Jairus Glamozina are on your bench. First thing here is that William Fakatomafi is back at fullback. Last few weeks, I think we have had... I can't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember. That's not a good thing. But he is at fullback. I'll just check this. And still no Patrick Alia. He is not named in the centre. And instead you've got Ray Tuaimalo Vanga. Paul Turner and Sione Mala in the halves, and then we go down to the edge forwards where Eliasa Katoa starting on an edge, which is huge news. Remember last week he was starting on the bench. Now he is on an edge, which gives us a nice insight into where Eliasa Katoa might progress as a prospect for the Warriors. I was thinking more of a middle forward maybe, but because he played pretty much 8 and 6 for first 15 rugby, now he's starting on an edge. And that combination, I haven't seen Katoa play for the Warriors, but by all accounts he's a very exciting prospect. And we know Tom Ale is an absolute monster. So having Katoa on one edge and Tom Ale on another edge, it's pretty exciting for Warriors fans. And if you can watch that game, definitely watch that game to watch the two edge forwards for the Warriors, because I think you've got a fair amount of talent on those edges. The Warriors website is also, with the Jersey Flegg team, they have also included their clubs that they play for weekly or have played previously. So there's a few interesting notes here just for a rugby league nerd like myself, and maybe you listening if you love your footy and you're entrenched in the local scene. So first thing here is that the dudes from outside of Auckland have been pretty much hooked up with Point Chef. So Point Chevalier and the Warriors obviously have a good relationship because you've got a lot of players from the Warriors and the Warriors systems who are outside of Auckland. They come to Auckland or they come to rugby league and then they join Point Chev. And there's a lot of players, those familiar with the Auckland rugby league scene will be well aware of the fact that a lot of players from less cool rugby league clubs in Auckland, they get recruited to go play for the bigger clubs in Auckland, like Point Chevalier or Te Aratu or Richmond. Just, I'm not like hating, I think that's common knowledge. So you've got Ravatamata, he is with Point Chevalier. He's from Rotorua Boys High School, but he's with Point Chevalier. Haley Maynard is with Point Chevalier, but he's from Auckland, I believe. He's from, he went to Mags, Mount Albert Grammar School, so he could be a Point Chevalier junior, so that's cool. And then Eleasa Katoa, he's associated with Point Chevalier, so he's come from First 15 Rugby Union with Tamaki College, and now he's with Point Chevalier. So the Warriors have obviously put him with Point Chevalier. And the other thing here is just where these players are coming from. So you got 3 players from Point Chevalier, but as I alluded to, are they really Point Chevalier players? Have they played their junior footy through Point Chevalier? Are they from Point Chevalier? Do they really have a true hearty connection to Point Chevalier? I'm not so sure. But a lot of these other guys, so you got William Whakatomafe is from Otahu, Richard Toi is from Otahu, Michael Lemafa is from Otahu, so that's 3 players, and then you got Whaio Tongia, who I haven't actually seen his name in a team list before, so this might be his first appearance. He is also from Otahu. That's 3 Warriors in this team who are from Otahu, the club Otahu in Auckland. Then you have the other big one is Manurewa. Sione Moala, Junior Pua are from Manurewa. Oh, it's only 2, so it's not really that, but it goes on. And Mount Albert, Isaiah Vangana, Tom Ale, and Paul Turner, and KL Iro are from Mount Albert. So shout out to everyone else. Ray Toimalo Vanga, he's from Marist. You've got Paul Turner, which is Hikarangi, which I believe is up north, and Mount Albert. You've got the Manurewa boys, you've got the Otahu boys, you've got Katoa, Point Chev, Tom Ale, Mount Albert. Brody Tamaroa is from Muri Whenua, which a little bit of research I did is from the way up the naughty north of Aotearoa. So you've got, again, I'm not an expert on this, so take this with a grain of salt, but I believe you've got Ngāpui, which is north of Auckland, and then you've got Muri Whenua, which is a collection of tribes up in the north of Aotearoa, which is north of Ngāpui. Again, I'm not an expert, but that's what my research suggests. So Brody Tamaroa, he's from way up north. And that's it for the Jersey Flegg team. They're taking on Victoria Thunderbolts. Should be a fairly good win, especially, this Jersey Flegg team is pretty damn talented. They may not be getting results, but just looking at the players they've got in that team and knowing where they come from, knowing their history in schoolboy rugby league, knowing their history in schoolboy First 15 rugby union, where they're coming from, these dudes are talented. And as I always say, the strength of these teams and how we judge these teams is how their players are prepared for the next level, and I think you're going to see a lot of these Jersey Flegg players moving up through the ranks fairly quickly. Alright, let's go hard and fast through the teams this week and the games this week in the NRL. Don't want to keep you too long here. I've got to record a Black Caps episode of the Nichecast, so let's go. Rabbitohs versus Knights. Nothing too crazy here. Rabbitohs have Mawene Hiroti on the wing. The Knights as per with the Kiwi NRL crew, Sean Kenny Dow, Herman SASA, James Gavey. Keep it on Herman SASA, needs to play well to either win a Kiwis jersey or get into Samoa. Interesting player because he's on the fringes between Samoa and Aotearoa. West Tigers versus Canberra Raiders. Tigers are as per with the Kiwi NRL crew. Raiders, the big thing here is Joseph Tapine starting in the middle. He started on an edge last week, only played 30 odd minutes and then got taken off, and Jordan Bateman was on an edge. Now this week Joseph Tapine starts in the middle, so keep an eye on Joseph Tapine in that game. Warriors versus Storm, you got the full Storm Kiwi NRL crew named to come back to Aotearoa. Sharks versus Eels, the Sharks, Britain Nakora and Sasai Feki, Braden Hamlin and Uele. I don't think we'll see Sean Johnson this week, but he better get on the field fairly soon because that Kiwis game is creeping up. Eels, only thing here is that Manu Ma'u is starting on an edge again with Marata Niukore on the bench, who is likely to play through the middle. Keep an eye on that. Cowboys, no Jordan Kahu, so you only have Jason Taumalolo. They are facing Manly Seagulls, who are as per. Interesting thing about the Cowboys is that Peter Holla, Maris Jr. and Emery Perry, who, I can't remember where, he's from the Waikato. I can't remember the specific club, but he's from the Waikato. They are both on the reserves list, and I keep a close eye on them this week because Josh Maguire might not back up. You never know. And Peter Holla and Emery Perry both play junior Kiwis. They are very robust, dynamic middle forwards, and I will almost guarantee that Peter Holla will make his debut for the Cowboys this season. Broncos versus Titans. Jesse Arthur's getting another gig at centre. He seems to have settled down into that centre role. And this game is all about Moeaki Fotuaika coming up against this big Broncos pack. I talked about the Broncos pack last week when they were playing against the Warriors a couple of weeks ago, and Fotuaika was bloody damn impressive against Jason Taumalolo and the Cowboys forward pack last week. Now he's coming up against Matthew Lodge, Payne Haas, and Tavita Pangai Jr. So keep a very, very close eye on Moeaki Fotuaika, who, as I always talk about, seems likely to be going to represent Tonga. Interestingly, Tongan coach Christian Wolf came out this week and celebrated the young Tongans coming through, which I've talked a lot about, but it was interesting coming from Christian Wolf because he's talking about Fotuaika and Manasi Fainu, who are both eligible for Aotearoa as well, having played for the junior Kiwis. And he was also talking about David Fafita. David Fafita went on to play Origin, so I'm just wondering if that was like Christian Wolf saying, you guys are in the Tongan mix. What's up? Come play for Tonga. I do think Fotuaika and Manasi Fainu will play for Tonga. Panthers versus Roosters. This game is all about James Fisher-Harris coming up against Isaac Liu, Sioso Tokiaho, Jeremiah Hargraves, Zane Tedavano, Satili Tuponoia. That's 5 Kiwi NRL middle forwards. And James Fisher-Harris, who I talked about last week, playing big minutes. Him playing big minutes, I'm not a big fan of. And especially against a forward pack like what the Roosters have. I think he could be in for a tough night. Bulldogs versus Dragons. My theme this week in the Kiwi NRL Encyclopedia was all about Kieran Foran, and he needs a pretty damn impressive string of games to crack the Kiwis halves. In commentary, whenever the Bulldogs are playing, they always say, this is the time for Kieran Foran to step up and take control of the game when the game's in the balance, and he never does. And I think you just got to view Kieran Foran as a solid NRL half and nothing extraordinary. But this Dragons team is there for the taking. And this Bulldogs forward pack, if they can gain some ascendancy against the Dragons and Kieran Foran's eager to run the footy, I reckon Kieran Foran could put in an impressive display for the Bulldogs and upset the Dragons. Interestingly, no Jordan Pereira, who's from Wellington. He has been the only Dragons Kiwi NRL player starting on the wing, and he's lost his place on the wing, I believe, at the moment to Jonas Pearson and Makali Ravalawa. Ravalawa, who played Schoolboy Rugby League rugby union, in Christchurch, I believe. So that's it, round 13. Warriors versus Storm, Saturday 5 p.m. And then all sorts of little Kiwi NRL wrinkles throughout the NRL this week. Kiwi NRL numbers are a bit low at the moment. You've got a lot of guys not playing NRL footy. So I'm a bit down buzz about that, but it comes in cycles, and I'm sure at some stage in the coming weeks we'll see an absolute truckload of Kiwi NRL players playing for their respective NRL clubs. Big it up to you. See you soon next week with some rugby league chitter chatter. Kia kaha.